What's going on, guys? It's Steve. What is the best NBA team of all time? This is a really hard topic to talk about because, it's kind of unfair. And the reason why I say it's kind of unfair is because different eras, different teams, different players, it's crazy. But I will say there's one team that most of you guys will agree with is the greatest team of all time. So let's go through a brief history of some of the best teams ever. Bill Russell's Boston Celtics. We have Magic Johnson, Kareem, and the Showtime Lakers that had, what was that? Michael Cooper, there I go again, stuttering. Y'all better not be making fun of me. We had Michael Cooper, and the Los Angeles Lakers with Magic and Kareem and the Showtime. He's one of the best defenders ever. You had your Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Boston Celtics. You know what I mean? You had your bad boy Pistons. You had your Lakers in the early 2000s. You had Jordan's Chicago Bulls, Jordan and Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Steve Kerr, Oakley. You had all those people. You had Kobe, Shaq, and the Lakers. You had Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu that won a championship in 3 different decades, 5 championships. It's crazy. You had Kobe's Los Angeles Lakers with Kobe and Powell and Andrew Bynum and Ron Artest and Derek Fisher. And then you also have the Boston Celtics, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce, which really changed the course of history in the NBA if you think about it, because if it weren't for them, LeBron would have never left Cleveland. He said that himself. So there you have LeBron, Wade, and Bosh's Miami Heat, the 66-16, second longest win streak ever, 4 straight finals appearances. They went 2 for 4 in the finals. You have all of these great teams. You have your Golden State Warriors, the modern-day Warriors with your Stephen Curry, your Kevin Durant. There's a lot of great teams in the league. There are a lot of great teams, in history. But to me, there's one team that really stands out. The San Antonio Spurs. Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, San Antonio Spurs are simply the greatest team in NBA history. Just because of the longevity. This team started out in 97 with Tim Duncan's draft. 97. Yeah, they were solid before with David Robinson, but 97 with Tim Duncan. This team came around. Tony Parker came in the league in the early 2000s. So did Manu. 5 NBA championships. 1 in 3 different decades for Tim Duncan. By the way, that speaks to the greatness of that king in San Antonio, Tim Duncan. But that team, in terms of longevity, and here's the crazy thing about this team, is they're still in the league. They're still, to this day, one of the best teams in the league, even without their best player ever. That's crazy. If you really think about it, how many teams have lasted as long as the San Antonio Spurs? And it's all because of Tim Duncan. The San Antonio Spurs have been a top team in the NBA for 20 years. For 20 years. That's crazy. And it's all because of Tim Duncan. If it weren't for Tim Duncan, Tony and Manu wouldn't be what they are now. Kawhi Leonard wouldn't be what he is now. Heck, the Spurs probably wouldn't even have drafted Kawhi Leonard if Tim Duncan weren't on the Spurs. It's crazy when you really think about it, how big of an impact Tim Duncan has had and the San Antonio Spurs have had. 20 years. And for 20 years they've been a top team in the NBA. For 20 years. That's ridiculous. That's crazy, man. I mean, geez. There's no team in NBA history that has been dominant for that long. Yeah, they're now winning every single year. Yeah, they don't have 11 championships like Bill Russell. But 20 years dominating as one of the best teams in the league? That's crazy. That's like Dashy, my dude likes to say. That's malarkey. I don't think there's ever been a team that's lasted that long in the NBA. And it's crazy because they're still lasting. Tony and Manu are old as hell. But they're still lasting. They still have their coach and Greg Popovich. Yeah, they lost Tim Duncan, but Kawhi Leonard's developing now. So the San Antonio Spurs are the greatest team ever. I know Michael Jordan, 6 for 6, dominated the 90s. But the thing about that is, remember, that was an expansion era. And that Chicago Bulls team was stacked. And they fell apart. They fell apart at the end for some reason. Phil Jackson got got kicked out. Jordan retired, and came back, went to Washington. And he obviously only went there because he wanted to own that team in the future, which he didn't even own. He went on to own the Charlotte Hornets, which is great. Well, the Bobcats back then, now they're the Hornets. But, so you have them. Yeah, you have Miami, 27-game win streak. It's the second longest ever. You had 3 of the top players ever on that team, dominating the league. Yeah, that's true. But who beat the Miami Heat? Who beat that Miami Heat team? Who beat the greatest player of all time? Not once, but twice in the NBA Finals. Now, I know in 2007, I understand that in 2007, it wasn't really LeBron's fault. He didn't have help. I understand. Things like that, I understand. But you also have to understand that doesn't matter. Historically, people aren't going to remember, oh, LeBron didn't have help. And look, people don't even remember what happened to Jordan before he had Scottie Pippen. So in terms of historical, San Antonio, come on, man. There's no competition. I'm sorry, but, let's go back. You can go back even further. You can go back to, well, actually, let's keep it a little more modern before we go historical. We can look at it as historical, technically. But you can look at Kobe and Powell, Yeah, they won 3 straight years to the finals. They only won 2. They didn't last that long. That team broke apart. And then they got Dwight Howard and Steve Nash, and Pau Gasol went to Chicago. And now he's in San Antonio, unsurprisingly, That's funny how that works. And then you want to talk about the Boston Celtics that changed the course of the league forever, and they really did, because if Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce didn't decide to team up together in Boston, LeBron would have never went to Miami. Dwight Howard would have never left Orlando. Kevin Durant would have never left the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Golden State Warriors probably wouldn't be what they are today. It's a whole snowball effect. It's crazy how it works. Like, honestly, it's crazy how one little thing, it seems big at the moment, but when you hear like, oh, Kevin Durant's going to Golden State, okay, it's big now, but think about how much it's going to change the league 5 years from now. Or let's say Anthony Davis decides to go and play with the Oklahoma City. Think about how big of a difference it's. You know what I mean? So Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce teaming up changed everything. So in terms of that, yeah, they're important. That doesn't make them the greatest team ever. They're one of the greatest teams ever. Top 10. They're not the best. Let's go on to I already talked about the Chicago Bulls. Let's talk about Shaq and Kobe's Lakers. Yeah, they were a great team, but I mean, can you really compare them to the San Antonio Spurs? I know they won 4 years in a row to the NBA Finals. They won 3 in a row. I understand that. Shaq and Kobe, one of the best duos ever. I get that. But you also have to understand that, yeah, they won 3 championships. The Spurs won 5 championships. 1 championship in 3 different decades. And they're still dominating to this day. They may not win an NBA championship, but they're still a top team in the NBA. So that's crazy, man. When you think about things like that, it blows my mind. And of course, a fucking loud ass truck decides to pull up next to my dorm. Oh my gosh, dude, I can't wait to get back home. Even though it's gonna be worse because it's Brooklyn. You know what I mean? But anyway, hopefully you guys don't hear that truck. If you do, I apologize. Anyway, okay, he turned the truck off. Good, thank you. I'm about to scream out the window. Turn your truck off. Big ass diesel down in Florida, man. Anyway, back to the topic. And then let's go historical now. The Utah Jazz, John Stockton and Karl Malone, they never won a championship. They're excluded. And then, we can go even further. Boston Celtics, yeah, they dominated. They didn't last as long as the Spurs, so they're excluded. The only team that really competes is Bill Russell's Boston Celtics. I mean, 11 NBA champ, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. 11 NBA championships, that's ridiculous. But the thing is, they didn't really, it's tough, man. Oh, man. When you compare it to that kind of team with that kind of success, it's really tough. And there's no way you can argue against winning 11 championships. You know what I mean? But I mean, in terms of that, dude, you also have to understand, like, what's it called? The San Antonio Spurs are still dominating to this day. To this day, they're still dominating. And it's been 20 years since Tim Duncan came in the league. But then again, man, the 11 championships, how can you argue against that? But I can say that the Spurs outlasted the Celtics in terms of longevity. But the Celtics back then, I think Bill Russell played with the Celtics from 56 to 69 for 12 years, something like that. They won more in a shorter period of time, but Tim Duncan and the Spurs lasted longer. So I'm gonna lean towards the San Antonio Spurs, just because of the competition they had to go up against as well. They had to play some of the best teams ever. I mean, they played against the Miami Heat. They played against some really good teams, man. So I gotta go with the San Antonio Spurs. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been Steve. I'm out of here. Peace.